And even when you're on stage, if you're doing comedy and in your brain, you're like, man, I hope they laugh at this. I really, please like this. And in your brain, like there's a part of you that's like, please like me, please like me. That will come through in your art. So instead of just playing to like allowing your creativity to create, you are now creating to get what they like. I can either, as an artist, flow with the art, or I can be a rigid person who's just like, no, I'm a comedy purist. I don't want them to say anything during the show. I just want to go up and do my jokes. You have the ability to rewire your soul and your brain. And I can get them to leave thinking about that, and they can go, oh, I have the ability to. It's not me being like, Jesus will change your life. Right? It's not me planting that specific seed, or like, you need to go to church and you need to turn around and all this. They're not leaving being like, I should go to church. But they are leaving going, I can intentionally do something about the way that I'm thinking and living. The times in my life where I was like really overzealous I realized was me not trusting that God would put other people in this person's life.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am here at the beautiful 2911 Church in Tempe, Arizona with the lovely Jaron Myers. We actually just did a show last night for about 250 people, and it was an absolute banger. The laughter in the room was so contagious, and it was just such a fun night. And Jaron graciously agreed to do the podcast with us this morning before he went to his other gig. And we're gonna have a great conversation with him today. So thank you for being here. If you don't know Jaron Myers, you're going to know him today, as well as you're gonna have to go see his comedies specials, as well as just follow him on social media, because he's super funny and such a light for Christ in these times. And I'm just so grateful you're here with us today, Jaron.
For sure, man.
It's gonna be so cool, man. You are a internet sensation. Is that the tagline that you've been using for all your gigs, or is that just what this place called you?
That was that. I think we added to the bio in like 2018.
It's a bold ad, dude.
Well, okay, so there was a time when now social media has changed so much since COVID. Like 2020, the shift that social media took in 2020 is wild. But like in 2017, the Chick-fil-A rap we put out, we got like 1 million views in like 2 days on that. And that was, at the time, 1 million views was viral. That was like huge. Now these TikToks, they'll get 70 million views and people will still be like, I haven't seen that video.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if the metrics were just different or if these numbers are made up or what. But like in 2017, 1 million views in the video in 2 days, it ended up being like that video's got like 150 million views. So for 2017, that's like 1 billion views today. Wow. So I think my management put in viral sensation or whatever, because they were like, internet. Because then I went viral for the graduation prank in 2018. Do you know about that?
Yeah.
And so there was like, I don't know, man. They do the marketing stuff. I just show up and do the shows.
It works though. I mean, caught my eye, so that's why I wanted to ask
that
you
what
about it
got
first.
you?
I was like, I like that.
Internet sensation,
dude.
Yeah,
it's like it's baller,
I mean, I'm not out here being like this. I'm not typing my own bio being like, this guy is.
But no, and I like, even on your Instagram, you have like a little like highlight that shows like your viral videos.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking about it last night, how like a viral video, if you have it more than once, it shows that it wasn't just a one-time thing. It wasn't a one hit. It shows that you have like a longevity in this business.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I was saying too. Like social media, there's so many things that go viral. That's just like, it wasn't content. It wasn't. Someone didn't make a piece of content for the internet. Like it was just a video that they filmed, and their dad got slapped in the face with a I don't know, a tortilla or whatever they're doing on the internet. Like. You know what I'm saying? Like their dad slipped in the backyard and fell on his back and went, and now that sound is viral.
Is a meme.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So there's a difference between like a one-off, like lots of views video, and then people who are making content and that's why, like, as much as these YouTubers who make videos for kids and stuff that are like, we built a pirate castle in our garage and no one knew, like all that kind of stuff. It's corny to me, but also like they're making content that consistently gets great views and they're making killer money from it. So at a certain level, I got to be like,
you got to respect it. That's their niche,
And like my nephew likes to watch it. It's not for me. I also don't like Blue's Clues. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, as an adult, I loved it when I was a kid. But I'm saying, like, I'm also not going to be like, why are they still making that crap?
Yeah.
You know, you're like,
There's an audience for everybody.
it's not for you.
Yeah.
So anyway,
No, that's a great perspective. We hit a viral video at the end of last year. So
Okay.
in December, it really popped off. It was crazy. We hit like 1 million on TikTok. And then that same guy's, one of our guests came on. He was a former inmate, incarcerated for like 20 years. His house caught on fire. God led him out of the house, walked through the fire, didn't even get burned. It was a crazy story. He came on, dropped gems on the show. He loves the word of God, and it took off. And then all the clips from it started taking off. And then it was really cool for us because we were like, you know, not in that place of viewership at that point.
Sure.
And then it was one of those things where we thought like, oh, well, is this a one-time thing? And then we had another one just recently in the last month go parabolic, where it was like 5 million on YouTube, 10 million on TikTok, and it just kept going and going and going. And then it makes you see though, like, okay, it's not a one-off. It's something that God is like building, and you have to understand that like if you keep doing the work, that more people are going to find it and more people are going to enjoy it, and it's just going to expand your reach to wider audiences.
Yeah, I mean, I think consistency is the key for all of the social media stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Or actually, I mean, anything you're doing in your life. If you show up to the gym once a month, you're not going to see any results.
Yeah.
You know, but you show up to the gym 4 times a month and you don't see results, something's wrong.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, and so you'll see something happen. And so, I think that's it's just about doing it and sticking with it.
Yeah.
And then when you do have something pop off, there's a back catalog, which is also really important.
That is so
that was the
important.
big thing, I think, when my Chick-fil-A viral video happened. I didn't have a huge catalog of videos that people who are just now finding me can then go back and watch. Now, if something goes viral, now they've got 10 years of stuff I've been putting on social media that hopefully would keep some people hooked in.
That's so good. Do you know the artist named Russ is? He's a hip hop artist. You can say
Russ
no.
is?
Russ. His name's Russ.
Russ.
Okay. No.
I don't know Russ.
Okay. He's a white boy, and he's a rapper, and he popped off like 10 years after he's been making music. So he had like 11 mixtapes and a bunch of albums for people to listen to. And he always talks about the value of your catalog. So I love that you said that too, because it's valuable, and it shows that like that's how you build like a fan base that's going to be able to like not just have the one hit wonder. They have a whole thing they can go consume and become a deeper rooted fan.
Yeah, because that's the other thing too, is there's a big distrust of some new artists, you know, because every band puts out their first album, right? And this is an album that they've been a band for 4 or 5 years. They've been recording, they've been writing these songs for 4 or 5 years. They put out that first album. It's killer. Yeah. It's incredible because they've been working on it. Then the record label's like, let's get another one. And they have to, now the first album took them 4 years to make. Now they're turning around their second album in 8 months. And so when it's not as good, people are like, oh, they fell off. And it's like, well, no, they had 4 years to work on the first one, but now people have discovered them. So now there's a demand for more content, which the demand drives down your creativity.
Wow.
And so if you're not taking the time and the space away from that to create, if you're creating it with an expectation of like, it's got to be as good as my other content. The thing about art is that art reflects what's inside of you. That's why, that's why we love painting. Something about human nature, seeing art, it speaks to us. You know, when you see a good painting or when you hear a great piece of music, there are emotions involved that are conveyed from the artist to the consumer, and you're connecting on that. If in your art is please like this, they will pick up on that.
Yeah, and you lose them like that.
Yeah, for sure. And so, even when you're on stage, if you're doing comedy and in your brain, you're like, man, I hope they laugh at this. I really, please like this. And in your brain, like there's a part of you that's like, please like me, please like me. That will come through in your art. And the consumer will receive that part.
Wow.
And so, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah.
Very real. When you said that part about the demand, when the demand expands, your creativity shrinks. Have you experienced that when your videos started popping off?
Yeah, I think that, yes. And I think that it's like, what I'm saying too is when you're now aware that people are watching your content, it's the same thing. Like my wife is watching one of those,
Vampire Diaries?
Yeah, well, I was trying to think what channel is that on? You know, like a CW kind of show, right? And I was talking to her about like season 1 was actually not terrible. Like they had a good plot, right? They had these vampires who had lived for 150 years, and now they've got this person from the past who's come back, and there's an actual plot to season 1. But what happens is, and same thing with Lost. What happens is that it gets put out, it gets this new audience, and now the audience is informing the art. And so it's this vicious cycle where it starts to eat its own tail because like my wife is in seasons, she puts it on while she's doing her nails or whatever. And like she'll be working and she's on it. It's background noise in our house right now. She's in like season 7 and she'll be like, oh yeah, he's a good guy now. He's a bad guy now. He's back to being a good guy right now. Because the writers clearly didn't have, there's no more, they're not going to a specific direction. They're just going to what they think the audience wants. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying is like demand kills your creativity because now you're aware of who's watching it. So instead of just playing to like allowing your creativity to create, you are now creating to get what they like, if that makes sense. And so you're now playing to the demand instead of allowing your creativity to flow from you. That's so the goal is different in your content. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying is that if that's in there, that will come through.
It will.
And so, and there's a reason. I mean, like, I'm a big a Day to Remember fan. Not a big fan, but you know, like their albums came out when I was in high school. Phenomenal. It was like, oh, this is great. The da 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 da, you know, great. But then their 2022 album was complete garbage, trash, awful. You can tell that they wrote it to be in a Transformers movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when you listen to it, you go, oh, the executives were like, we need 3 songs that'll play well during the credits of a Transformers film. Yep. Then they dropped their record label. And then they put out an album on their own, and it's back to bangers.
Yes. Okay.
Because there was no creating for the demand.
Right.
You know?
That's so interesting you say that because I've had a guest on our show before named Lisa Short. She says that your audience will put a demand on your brand, and she's had to kind of elevate that demand for the audience that found her.
Yeah.
And I do wonder if she's experienced that side of what you're talking about, not being able to like create what you want, or do you step into that place where like God is leading you to feed those sheep in that way?
Right.
So I wonder if there's like 2 sides to it.
I think there's some artists who have found a good balance.
Yeah.
And I don't listen to a ton of Christian music, to be honest. But like David Crowder, when I realized, because I've done a couple events, and his live show is really good. But what I realize is half of his album is designed and written for K-Love. And so when you listen to half those songs, you go, oh, you're playing the game.
Yeah.
But the other half is what he actually wanted to write. Because they sound completely different.
They do. Yeah.
I'll listen to a song and I go, this is David. He'll do a song and I go, this is David Crowder? This is how he loves, guy? You know?
Yeah.
But I realized, and maybe this is me putting, and I don't want to expose his game.
You're just like overthinking it. You're like, I see the game.
Here, but I'm looking at it and I go, half this album's trash, half of it's good. I hope he doesn't see this. The whole thing's fine. The whole thing's fine.
The body work is good.
He won't see this. It doesn't look like he uses the internet. So, but half of it I go, this is clearly written for a Christian audience. And then the other half I go, this sounds like what you wanted to write. And so I think there is a balance of, because you do want to continue to build. You want to continue to give
value.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong. I don't want to say like there's anything wrong with, there is something very wrong with pandering. That's gross, right? But there's nothing wrong with hitting the normal bases. You know, like let's just hit the regular good bases. This is good information. It's not something deep and something, you know, that I would spend 3 hours researching and writing on, but it's still good information. You've probably heard it before, but that doesn't mean that I can't say it in a different way that's unique to me. And so I think that as that demand rises, yes, you want to keep that audience, obviously, but you want to keep them so that you can point them to the stuff that you're very, very good at. And so it becomes a balance of, sure, I'll play to the crowd, but I'm going to, if you're playing to the crowd more often than you're releasing your own creativity, I think that's what starts to really kill your creativity.
Right.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with 80% your creativity, 20% nudge, nudge. Hey, here, we're in the crowd kind of thing.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Does that make sense?
It does. And then last night, so we're at 2911 Church in Tempe, Arizona, and last night we had a show, and you did about an hour and 5 minutes on stage. So well done, because it flew by, and it felt like the audience still wanted more, which was great.
Yeah,
great place to be at. So in that little,
I wanted more. I was having a good time.
And it was good, man. It was really good, and the crowd work was good too. Like the way it included the crowd, and you remembered everybody's name with the Maddox thing, and then the Eunice thing. Like, that was super funny, and you did a great job of like bringing the audience into your material. Yeah. Is that something that you do consistently? And is that like your thing? So what is like that creative thing that really gets your gears moving?
So that's, I would say that maybe that's a good example of what we've been talking about. Comedy audiences have changed. They have watched a lot of crowd work clips on social media. They think that
is comedy.
They think that comedy shows are a yell out thing now.
Yeah.
So you can either be a comedy purist and really fight that, or you can ride the wave and you can just kind of be like, okay, people are gonna, I can't shut that lady down when she's yelling something out.
Yeah.
Because especially because we're doing church shows. I can't be like, hey, ladies. Now, and obviously there's a line. I've kicked people out of shows. I don't have to usually at church shows, but I just did a show a couple weeks ago where the staff had to come and kick someone out of the front row. And then when she got kicked out, the entire audience cheered, because I had to, it was one of those points where I had to be like, hey.
You're ruining it for everybody.
She was super drunk, and it was like, listen, I've tried to be nice and tell you, but like now I've got to be like, hey, I've got to break character for a second and say, you're kind of messing up what we're doing, you know, and I need you to be quiet. And then when she got kicked out, the whole audience was like, so which makes me feel good because I go, okay, I know we've made the right decision by kicking you out. But I think that people have watched a lot of crowd work clips.
Matt Rife.
Yeah, and I get why comics do it, because you're not burning material.
Yeah.
You'll post a crowd work clip. You're never going to tell that specific joke again.
It makes sense for content.
Because it only works in that context. It does make sense for content.
It makes so much sense.
It's changed the art.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what I'm saying is like, I can either, as an artist, flow with the art, or I can be a rigid person who's just like, no, I'm a comedy purist. I don't want them to say anything during the show. I just want to go up and do my jokes. And some comics are like that.
Yeah.
But when they yell stuff out, I've been trying to write material based on like when she'll yell something out, I'll try to lead into a new material, or I've been writing things to say about people, like the cowboy hat guy. There's always a cowboy hat person that I can work into that one bit about wrangling the python into the Chamber of Secrets. There's always a person that I go, you're telling me this guy isn't gonna, and that's a way of me including the crowd.
Yeah.
Then by doing that, it almost makes it like, hey, you don't have to yell anything out. I'm going to include you.
Yeah. That's valuable.
And so it keeps them from yelling out, because they're like, oh, he is including us already.
Yeah, and you ask like who has some weird kid names or something,
right.
And that's like gold, because then you're giving them permission in that moment. You're making space
permission.
for it.
That's
a
great word for it. Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, this is the appropriate time to and there's like a callback thing, like where I go, where I say, hey, this is a yes or no question. I want you to verbally answer. That's them saying yes. That's them participating in the show, and so they realize there's spaces for it, which I think does kind of diminish the random yell out stuff.
Yeah.
But every once in a while you get that, that lady was just yelling stuff.
Yeah.
So.
She didn't even answer the question of like,
I know. I was like, what was your name?
What's your real name?
From this town in Tennessee. You're like, all right.
I guess we ain't going to get that
give me the whole Wikipedia page, please.
Except your name.
Yeah.
She's like, what if it was Eunice? Like maybe it just was.
Yeah. I think it was Maxine is what she ended up saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we didn't hear it from the crowd where we were at if she didn't answer that.
I couldn't hear it either. I think someone told me afterward.
Oh, okay. Funny. No, that's so good, man. And we are a Christian podcast. You're a Christian comic, and you perform in places that aren't Christian venues. So what do you notice is the difference is your set different in different venues? No?
I do that same set. And I do that same serious part. And because funny is funny. And I cringe at and maybe you can watch it back and see me go, when you go, I'm a Christian comedian. Not to pull a switchfoot. But
you're a comedian who's Christian.
Yeah, I'm a comedian. I just happen to, I follow Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
I'm a Jesus follower. And I've always I love, great respect for Christian comedians. Shonda and Hawkins, great. Yeah. And the show's great. I don't want to become a Christian comedian where you invite a non-church friend to my show and I do a bunch of jokes that they wouldn't get. You know, I think there's obviously what I'm saying is like Hawkins will do a whole bit about the door greeters at church. But if a non-Christian comes and hears that set, they don't get that joke. Then now that doesn't mean that that's wrong. That just means that his vision and his show is geared for, you know, inside baseball, doing the inside jokes. That's hilarious. You know, we get it because we know church door greeters.
Yeah.
My vision and my hope is that this is a spot that is just a clean show. Funny is funny. I'm just trying to be as funny as I can. And then I talk about that nugget of truth of training your brain, which is a spiritual discipline, but it's also backed up by real psychology. It's not just, you know, some kind of spiritual manifestation voodoo. Like this is real things that you can rewire and retrain your brain and create new neural pathways. And so if in my show I can get people laughing, get them comfortable with me, include them with the crowd work stuff, and then plant a seed where I go, you have the ability to rewire your soul and your brain. And I can get them to leave thinking about that, and they can go, oh, I have the ability to. It's not me being like, Jesus will change your life. Right? It's not me planting that specific seed or like, you need to go to church and you need to turn around and all this. They're not leaving being like, I should go to church. But they are leaving going, I can intentionally do something about the way that I'm thinking and living. And if I can plant that seed, and then and if you can invite a friend to my show that you're a church person and you're a follower of Jesus, and then by that conversation, you can talk about how you do that, what that looks like for your spiritual disciplines, and how the Holy Spirit has helped transform and mold your brain and your soul and your body and your physical responses to those triggers, then that's a conversation that you can have and water that seed. If that makes sense.
So good.
So I think my hope is more just to be funny and be the funniest that I can. And then when they follow me on social media, every once in a while, I do drop things about my faith, and it's obviously central to who I am, but I don't know that it's central to my art, if that makes sense.
Okay. I like that.
And
I respect that. And I think that's where you're able to reach more than just people who already follow Christ. Yeah. Because you're able to reach people, like you're saying, from all walks of life that may not ever go to church, but they found a way to be in a seat at your comedy show. Right. And that can do so much more for them when they take that away.
And I want to honor that relationship I have with them. Like, because I don't know them and I don't have a full context of who they are. I don't have a long, 10-year friendship with them. I don't want to be a person who's just like, hey, by the way, let me talk about probably the deepest and most aspect of your core in this interaction that I don't know anything about you. Yeah. I'm gonna plant that seed and let someone else who has more context have that conversation.
Right. So you're essentially laying seeds, and you're not worried about you being the one that waters them, because you know that God's going to send somebody to water them as well.
I trust God to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's real.
I think that the times in my life where I was like really overzealous I realized was me not trusting that God would put other people in this person's life.
Interesting.
Like in a friendship where I was just like, man, I've got to get this person to the Lord. Right. Yeah. I am putting so much pressure on myself as if I am the only one God could use in this person's life. And what ends up happening is I start measuring where they're at spiritually, and I start to measure if I've effectively communicated the gospel to them. Because if I was more effective with the gospel, then they would have accepted it and changed already. So them not doing that means that I'm not sharing it effectively enough. And you see how that's like,
it puts more of a condemnation on yourself.
And it makes it about me.
Yeah.
It's not about me at all.
Right.
If I'm truly like, but it makes me feel good where I go, I'm caring about this person's soul. No, I'm not. I'm caring about if I get another person to follow Jesus or not. That's about me. That sucks.
Wow.
And when I realized that I was doing that, I was like, well, I don't like being that person. And so I want to fully trust that God is moving and working the same way when I really just sit down and think about the number of people and the conversations that I've had that have pointed me on the direction that I'm on, I go, I'm so glad it wasn't just one person, but I can't even list how long that is. And so if that's true for me, I've got to trust that that's true for the people that I'm ministering to.
Wow. That's so real. Have you experienced in your DMs or people that talk to you after shows that you have been a seed sower in their faith?
Yeah. I mean, I get messages all the time. I'll tell you what my most common message is people who, because I'm a millennial, and there's a lot of people who grew up in the early 2000s church culture who have since deconstructed that It's a hot word, but a lot of the messages I get are, you're one of the few Christians that I follow online that keep me tethered to this faith.
Wow.
There's and not to, I'm saying like, it's a message I get often.
Yeah, and that's powerful.
Of people who are like,
lean in.
Or I left the church a long time ago and I'm not really a Christian anymore, but I still follow you and I really like your content. Wow. And so if I can still be that bridge, even if they're out here on this circle of whatever, in this circle of faith, if they're out here, then I want to honor that relationship that I've got. And I don't want to do anything to be like, okay, let me burn that bridge. And so, yeah, I mean, I get messages all the time of people who are like, oh, I've really been thinking about that. Or they'll message them, because sometimes I mention that there's a couple books that I've read that talk about that. One of the biggest ones is Telling Yourself the Truth. It's a book it's two Christian counselors, and they talked about replacing the lies that you tell yourself with the truth of Scripture. And so when you hear yourself talk to yourself, if you ever like just in your car, you'll hear the things you say. Like I went through a breakup long time ago, in 2015, 2016, somewhere around there. And it was, you know, when you're 22 and you go through that breakup, it's like that.
It's the worst feeling ever.
Right. And, you know, I remember the stuff that I would think to myself was, no one else is going to love me. No one else is going to find me attractive. And when you hear yourself thinking those things, replacing that with the truth of Scripture of no one else is going to love me. Well, no one else is going to love me the way that God loves me. And if I can, in that moment, hear myself thinking, and even if I don't feel that it's true at that moment, I can go, no, I know that that's not true. I know that God cares for me. I know that my parents love me. I know that I've got friends who would do anything for me. So I know that that lie I'm telling myself is not true. And right now it feels true, but I have to take a step back and tell myself the truth. And so, and it's a great book, but that's literally how you rewire your brain. Wow. And it sounds like some positive hippie voodoo stuff, sure. But so I'll get messages of being like, hey, you mentioned that book. I read it, and this is changing my life.
Wow.
And it's like, oh, that's great. I love that.
That's the win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not, and then I write it down on a Post-it note and I go, at Adam said I changed his life. And I put it on my wall and I go, I changed a person's life. And every morning I go, look at all the lives I've changed.
That's so funny. You, so what is what does the Lord put on your heart as far as what your dream is with stand-up comedy?
Yeah.
I know it's deep.
Fame, power, riches,
money.
No, come on. No, I think my goal is, I mean, like any other stand-up comedian, I would love to be able to sell as many tickets as I can and just keep doing this. Like, I'm just grateful that I pay my bills doing this. That's wild.
Yeah.
You know?
And that was like the first dream, and then it evolves.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And then it goes to, I would love to, because right now, like the show we did last night was part of their fundraiser. I would love to get to the point where I'm selling tickets where it's my event, you know? And so, and that's just more of like, I want to be able to control the environment for the show. Like I want to be able to bring my own openers, and because otherwise the church books some people. And
who light it up.
No, I want to be able to I want to be able to build my audience, and through that, like my podcast, things I learned last night, my best friend Tim teaches me something every week. I would love for him to be full-time doing that, you know? So there's other things where now it's like, okay, now that I've got my income secure, I'm working, I'm putting money away, like we're building this thing. I'd love to be able to bring some other people along with me.
I love
and
that.
Then, obviously the dream is theaters. The dream is to be able to, I live in Los Angeles. I'd love to do TV and movie work. That'd be fun.
It would be fun.
As long as I did commercial work. There's a company in San Diego that I do a lot of like funny commercials with. And those are some of my favorite days. Like days that I just get to be creative, make content. I helped write some of these funny commercials, and I had some ideas that I was like, dang, that's killer. I wrote a commercial and they rejected it, but I wrote a commercial for Eggo waffles where it's a person waking up doing a get ready with me. Get ready with me as a person with lobster hands for St. Patrick's Day, my favorite day of the year, where I get to pinch people and they can't be mad. And so it's just a good morning video where I've got lobster hands. I'm putting the clothes on and all this stuff. And then it's me making breakfast with my lobster hands and being like, my Eggo waffles. And Eggo was like, can we do something normal? And I was like, that's funny though.
That crushes.
And so I was like, all right, what about a tiny civilization that lives inside the toaster? And then every morning the Eggo waffle comes down. That's their son. And they're like, ooh. And then it pops away and they go, oh. And then the next morning, and I was like, do you guys like that one? And they were like, something normal. And I was like,
those are gems. Those are both great.
Those are great ideas.
Those are great ideas.
So, but that's what I'm saying is like, if I can, and I got paid for that writing session. So it's like, I got paid to sit there and say dumb stuff like that.
You didn't get to see it.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it. But if I could see some of my dumb ideas come to fruition. Like the most fun I have is when we're doing our sketch videos and the podcast is the hardest I laugh in my life.
What's it called for our audience?
It's called Things I Learned Last Night.
On YouTube, Spotify, Apple,
everywhere. Yeah. And he teaches me a different topic every week. And so we just did an episode about an experiment where 10-year-old boys got put into a house and there's all these camera guys and they're instructed not to interact with the cameras. And so it's just to see if 10-year-olds can survive in this house. And I mean, within 2 hours, they're painting the walls. They're punching holes in the walls. They've taken all the food they have and just throwing boxes of cereal over the house. And then probably 3 hours in, they go, oh, we got to live here for a week. And so they elect a leader, of the 10 boys. They end up tying
Lord of
one
the Flies.
kid. Oh, that's what I'm saying. It was a whole week of these 10, and they've got a professional counselor. They're all day 5. They're traumatized. It's all it didn't go well. And then 6 months later, they did it with 10 girls, and they could have lasted their entire lives in the house. They were making dinner every night. They were they solved conflict together. It was wild. It was just showing how 10-year-old girls are far and above superior than even I am at being an adult. But it was, it's an interesting show. So every episode we just learn about something fun and something interesting, useless information.
Yeah.
Stuff but if it comes up at a party, the Australian government had a full out war with a pack of emus that they literally had to bring in helicopters, and they were trying to, because they had an emu infestation. What they figured out was that the emus outsmarted them, because the emus would move in a pack and then they would disperse and then come back to a pack, and then they would the emus would flank the military. And so it was stuff that was wait, these things are smart, and they outsmarted the Australian government. So,
dang, dude,
if that ever comes up at Thanksgiving,
you got that.
You got a whole hour where you could be like, dude, you know the Australia, So it's a really fun
That's
show.
a cool premise of a show, and it gets you an opportunity to be with your best friend and talk about the silly things.
I can't overemphasize how dumb we are. We're so dumb,
which is so fun, man. That's how, and it's relatable though, because me and my best friend are so dumb together.
Yeah,
and the audience same way, but they have a connection with their best friend, and it's cool because it feels like you're hanging out with your best friend.
Yes,
in spirit of that, and I think that's a really great.
And that's something. There was people who came to the show last night who came up and they were like, "We listened to the podcast."
Yeah,
and it's
so good. Yes. That's the win, and that is the win. And we were talking kind of pre-show about this, about number one, building email lists, and number two, building an audience on your podcast, because they can, number one, the email you're kind of talking about, you have direct access to them, because social media, you can post even if you have almost 200,000 followers and only 100 people see it still based on the algorithm. But your email, you can directly get into their inbox, let them know if you're coming to their city, let them know if you have a new episode coming out, a new special coming out. And then with the podcast, they're kind of invested in your life a little bit more if they're tuning in.
Well,
weekly
they spend a lot of time with you.
Yeah,
people drive 20 minutes to work and 20 minutes home. They've spent that entire drive with you.
Yeah, so
now they feel like they know you. Exactly. It's almost like they're just on the phone with you for 20 minutes.
Right. And it's so cool. And that's why I Like Birds podcast has been something that has been the thing that we've been driving the most, because we understand the power of that, and we understand that you can really minister to people through that.
Yeah.
And you can really bring people to truth and light and joy all through the power of the podcast. And then putting on a show and all that is just a bonus. It's come see us in person, and they connect with you in such a deeper way when they've been listening to you, rather than if they just saw you for the first time in comedy.
Right. Exactly.
And that's where
that's what I was saying. That's why I put the QR code on the screen last night. Is that if this is how we've introduced ourselves, you've seen my show, so you know that. Hopefully you leave and you're like, that guy was really funny. Here's a way to keep
connecting with
funny
us.
Stuff.
Yeah, which is so good.
Yeah,
and it's very valuable that you do that. And one thing that you put on the screen also for the QR code is your special called The Blind Date.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to me, our audience about that, and what that experience was like, where'd the idea come from.
Yeah.
And just share with our audience all about that.
You know, again, when I say like my goal is to do my own shows, it's because I want to have the creative freedom to do stuff in my set where it's like, I don't want to fret if I'm doing an hour and 5. Like if I go 5 minutes over, I don't want to be like, oh shoot, I'm part of someone else's event, you know? But the other thing is like, I want to be able to do silly, dumb things. This was a silly, dumb thing. I thought it'd be funny if I did a show where like I was eating dinner with the audience and like the audience is my date, you know? And I thought it'd be funny if like, you know, a couple people from the audience came down and sat with me and I interviewed them. And like, it was like almost like a talk show kind of thing, but over dinner. Right. And then that kind of evolved to where I was like, well, what if I had a waiter character who came in and then like, what if it was just one girl? And so I was almost writing like a small 1-act play where I was like, okay, I want to write lines from me and the waiter, but I don't want the girl to have lines. I want to get an improv person to sit down and them not know the lines and me and the waiter know the lines. And we look at her like, say your line, you know? And like, so like that was like one iteration of the idea. And then it went to, well, what if this girl didn't know that we were going to do this at all? Like, what if this was just, we threw her into this to see what would happen? And then it turned into, well, what if she's not even an improv person? What if we just get someone random and see what happens? And that's how the blind date happened. So the blind date, if you don't know, is a comedy show where I asked a girl on a date, and then when she got there, we had a dinner table on stage where we then had our first date in front of the audience. And so she didn't know I was a comedian. She didn't know anything about me. She just showed up. We watched some comedy, and then they introduced the headliner. They were like, "Would you welcome your headliner, Jaron Myers?" And so when I stood up, she's like, "Okay." And then I say, "Hey, I'm on a date tonight. Reagan, would you like to join me for dinner on stage?" And so she comes on stage, and there was an Italian place next door that I went over before the show and bought our chicken parmesan. And then the waiter brought it over. It was plated. It was like real plates. And I was surprised. I was like, oh. And he brought over the bread basket. Like the restaurant was like, oh, this is a funny idea. And so they went all in. They gave him a pitcher of water. They gave him the apron. Like there was some things where I was like, this wasn't the plan.
They added value though.
That's what I'm saying. It was great. It was
ordained by the Lord.
I was like, okay. And so, yeah. So, I mean, that's how the idea formed. It was something, it was honestly like that idea was probably 4 years in the making. Wow. I have a lot of stuff that like there's stuff that I'm working on right now that I've been working on since 2022.
Really?
You know, and I'm not going to release it until
it's the right time.
Yeah, for sure.
Dang, that's so good. So you get to this she comes on stage.
Yeah.
She sits down. What was like her first reaction that you noticed where it was like this was like the goal of the content? Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know that she was an actor.
Okay.
That was something that like I found out on stage. So I found out on like, and that's why some people are like, oh, it's stage, just made up. She's a college student. I was 23, so it's not weird for me to message a college student. She's my age. Chill. It'd be weird if I did it now. If I was just like, I really did message like 40 different girls. Really? So here's a fun fact is that I had a different girl picked out. So like I had a girl who I was like, hey, we're gonna go to this show like a week before. And she was like, oh, I'd love to do that. And 2 days before, she texts me and she goes, hey, I'm so sorry. I can't get off work that night. And she doesn't know the plan either. So I can't be like, you have to get off work, you know?
It's a production.
And so she didn't know, you know? And so I was like, oh, what a bummer. No, maybe we'll go out a different time or whatever. And I think that girl actually wanted to go on a date with me. But so then the next day, I literally am sending 40-something girls this copy paste message that's like, hey, I'm going to a comedy show. Would you want to go? And so I messaged, and so this girl was the first one to respond. So I didn't know she was an actor. This is literally just like throwing stuff at the wall. And then she's like, I'll go. And I'm like, thank God. Okay. And so she shows up. The moment I knew we were cooking was the audience is on this side. She goes to put her hand on her, like this, and she goes here, and then she switches to her upstage hand. And I was like,
oh, she got it. she know the vibes.
I was like, oh, this is crushing. And so she was comfortable. And that was something I didn't expect, actually. So like I am more nervous than I think she was, because she was just like, I'm along for the ride. She's looking at me when we're sitting at the table like, you're in charge here. Like, this is your show. And I'm sitting here going like, I hope we don't mess this up. And so I get up and ask the audience for advice. The part that I knew this was like we struck lightning on this was I went to the bathroom and just left her on stage by herself. And so I walk off, and there's no bathroom. I literally just go to this backstage area and I'm just watching. I'm like, going to see what she does. And then she sits there for a second, and then she just looks at the audience and she goes, I was just complaining to my friends about my dating life. And they're like, and so she's like, this is great though. She goes, and you guys paid to see this? Like, what a fun idea, And she just sat there and owned it. And she was like, he'll be back, And the waiter went out and they had an interaction, and then I came back out, and it was just, there were so many things that just really were killer. And like there was real conversation. It wasn't like it was small talk. It was like we got into a part where we filmed it in 2018. So I hadn't even done the graduation thing. I had only gone viral for the Chick-fil-A rap. And it was that fear where, what if this is the only thing that I've got? And I said that in the thing. I said, I'm worried that, I had my shot, that viral video was my chance, and I've missed it. And I said that in that, and you can see it's a real, like, I'm almost like forgetting that we're filming. And even in that moment, now that I'm looking back at it, I go, I didn't even realize then that I was filming my other viral moment,
Wow.
And so anyway, we're having this conversation at the end, and I had actually told several people this before. This is the part that I was so excited for, was I was going to get up at the end and say, first dates are awkward. You don't know how they're going to end. If you go in for a hug, sure. If you're going for a handshake, shut it down. You're not getting a second date. I said, but I thought tonight went pretty well. I said, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a kiss. And she's just sitting at the table behind me. And so the audience, you can feel them go, oh no. and that's what I'm saying is like, one of the things that I want for my career is to be able to create those moments like I did last night in the show, where I go, here's my new joke. And I love making people go, oh, what's he about to say? And then like delivering something, they go, oh, good.
Just straight eating thunder.
Because it's fun, where it's just like, it's like, oh, what could happen here?
Yeah.
And I don't, to be honest, I had just such a blind confidence, arrogance, whatever. I was just like, this is going to work out. This girl's going to sit down and I'm going to get the kiss at the end before the show. I was just like, this is going to work.
I got the juice.
Straight up, and I don't know what that is in my broken brain, but I was just like, this is going to work. So I got the kiss at the end. She kissed me in front of the audience, and that's how the date ends, know? And the plan was to do multiple of those. The plan was to do like 5-6 dates. We were going to do different girls and do this whole series. This is a proof of concept. So like when you look at it, it's not the quality I want it to be. You can see our mics on our thing because our mics quit working 2 hours before the show. And we literally had to go to rent those from Guitar Center.
Wow.
And so it's like, this is kind of thrown together in my mind. And so the goal was to film it, edit it, and then show it to like HBO or Netflix at the time and just be like, give me money, look what I can do, And then my producer afterward was like, I think we struck lightning. He's like, I think that went so well that if we tried to do it again, we would just compare to this, and it would like we would
kind of like that freshman album. Yeah.
We'd be forcing it.
Yeah.
It'd be like we would always compare it to that.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, that's true, I guess. And he goes, and I think you should call her. And I was like, what? Stop, But I did. And we started dating. I mean, and then we just got married last year. So that's what I'm talking about, man.
Dude.
So you can literally go on the internet and watch me meet my wife for the first time.
What a story.
Wild.
Dude.
Wild. And what's crazier is I say that in the show, and I say it like tongue in cheek, kind of joking. I'm like, this could be I'm telling the audience beforehand, before she gets there, I'm like, this could be a disaster. She could walk out and leave, or I can meet my wife tonight. And the fact that I said that is just insane.
That boy prophesying.
Dude. I'm like, oh man. So anyway, this podcast has been great, and maybe I'll get a Toyota 4Runner later. Just speaking it into existence. I don't know. I want it so bad.
They're great cars.
Maybe I love them. Just trying to say stuff. Put it out there. Manifest.
A house. Millennial, a house.
A house. No, man, it's crazy, dude. And she's the best. She's phenomenal. She's amazing. She's joyful. And I really was like, I made that joke last night about how she never has a bad day, and it makes my days worse. It's so true, though.
Yeah, my wife is so similar to that, bro.
Like her perspective, her brain wiring is just there already.
Right.
Where she's just like, yeah, today's gonna be a good day.
That's so special that you have that, because it kind of goes alongside with what your ministry is of joy, so to have that, her pour into you like that is amazing. I love her name, Reagan.
She's a great reset for the week, to be able to go home and hang out with her. And she's a 5th grade teacher. She loves her students, and she's an incredible person.
So incredible. For our audience, we're actually going to put the link for you for that.
Perfect.
So that through that website. Yeah. So it's normally on Amazon if they want to buy it.
It's on Amazon Prime if you want to go rent it for $2.99, or you can go to jaronmyers.com/blind date and get it for free. So if you want to save $3, which I know you do, a lot of your listeners are probably Dave Ramsey fans.
For sure. Baby steps.
Yeah, baby step number 1 is to get free stuff. So that would mean a lot to me, and that would make my life better than I deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. So good, man. And you're also coming to our city in Fort Worth sometime soon in November.
Oh, I am. Yeah. What's your turnaround for these episodes? When is
we'll probably have out within the next 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
There'll be enough time for them to see it and get tickets.
Yeah. So I'll be in Virginia, Georgia, Florida, Kansas, Georgia line, and Kansas and Texas in November. So with Shama Marema and Mike Goodwin.
Beautiful, man. Florida, where are you at in Florida? That's where I'm from, and that's where a lot of our listeners are from too.
If you know where this is, this will blow my mind, because every person I've talked to, they go, "What? Umatilla?"
Nope.
Yeah,
no idea.
It's like, I think they were trying to, when they routed the tour, I think they were trying to put it somewhere between Orlando and Jacksonville.
Okay.
Because it's like maybe 45 to an hour northeast of Orlando. I don't know. They were trying to like do a Central Florida type thing. Umatilla, Florida. So someone knows where it is.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I'll tell you who does know. Google Maps.
There you go. That's good. That's a gem right there.
That's it.
And you're there in a few weeks from
I am there in November. Yeah, that's part of the church comedy tour.
Beautiful.
With Shama Marema and Mike Goodwin.
Beautiful.
So, good times.
Are those your good friends?
They are my best friends.
That's amazing.
As far as a marketing standpoint goes. No, they really are. They're wonderful. Like, it's really fun to get to do, because this is a lonely business, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's a lot of traveling by myself. It's a lot. Like, if I wasn't doing this morning, like I'm so glad Lucas, the guy who was here with us, he and I are going to hit the gym later today, and that doesn't happen a lot. Usually, it's like I have to get up and I drive like 3 hours by myself, listening to different podcasts and stuff, and then stay in hotel rooms by myself, and then I fly home. And then, and a lot of times I'll fly home like a Monday morning. I'll get home at like 9 a.m. and my wife's at work. So it's just like, I'm home by myself until she gets home, and then she gets home and I go, oh, person, so it's really cool to get to do this tour this fall with other comedians and people I enjoy being around. And
it's gonna be really special, bro.
Yeah, that doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah, get the right bits together and film more content together and stuff. So that's gonna be really special, dude. So we'll have to come see you in November in Fort Worth, and then for our Florida audience as well, check out Jaron out there, and go to jaronmyers.com for anything else comedy related and see all his stuff that he's got going on. And we appreciate you, man. Last night was an awesome show, and so thank you for making the time to be on the podcast.
Thanks so much. Yeah, if you enjoyed this, I'm Jaron Myers, and if you hate me, I am Tim Hawkins. So it's been great.
Love it. We'll leave you there. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to, and we're just really grateful that you're here today. Smash the like button up if you enjoyed this, and we'll see you on the next one. My name is Zach Rippey, and this is the I Like Birds podcast.